Now, with the 2024 general elections coming up next year, the ANC redrafted its rules for the nomination of candidates to Parliament. Some say this is to prevent President Cyril Ramaphosa from being disqualified from standing for a second term. To unpack this, we're joined in studio by Chief Livhuwani Matsila from the ANC's Electoral Committee. Chief Livhuwani, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us in studio. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for the invitation.
New rules have been drafted. First of its kind, I understand. Private prosecution excluded from the long list of rules for nominations. Perhaps let's start with some of the considerations. Yes, elections are coming up. 2024 is around the corner. But what are the other considerations that had to be put on the table before this decision was made?
So the intention of the rules that are now approved by the National Executive Committee is to ensure that we've got candidates that we could deploy when we look at people who are going to be members of parliament and also members of the various legislatures. So the issue there is to look at the qualities and attributes of those candidates in terms of our members when they do the selection at the level of the branches during the branch general meetings. So we're looking at people who are preferably having post-matric qualifications or diploma degrees and higher education qualifications, and also people who are very experienced in terms of law-making processes and policy-making processes, because those institutions where our candidates are going to be deployed are institutions that are based on reading and understanding pieces of legislation. So it's important that people have got the proper functionality and professionalism to be deployed at that level. But we're not only looking at qualifications alone, even those without qualifications, but who are very functional at a professional level are also going to be deployed in the process.
Mm. With this very robust way of selecting candidates to go to Parliament, of course, candidates must also not have a criminal record.
Yes, no criminal record at all. Also, candidates should not have been suspended or found guilty by the disciplinary committees of the ANC in the last 10 years. Those who are on suspension or on step aside, as recommended by the Integrity Commission and approved by the National Executive Committee, are also not going to be considered in terms of this process.
A few months ago, in fact, we've been hearing former President Thabo Mbeki slating the ANC and its leadership over the continued protection of President Cyril Ramaphosa from accounting over the Phala matter and making the theft scandal, of course, and warning that with this move, the party runs the risk of being alienating its support base. And I understand that this is a strategic move as well to prevent President Cyril Ramaphosa from being disqualified from standing for a second term. Perhaps let's talk about the imperative objective with this rule. How will this rule work in favor of the ANC?
Which rule in particular? You mean the private prosecution issue?
Yes.
Now, I think it's not right to say that the rule is meant to protect the president. Mm-hmm. You recall that the court of law has already said that particular private prosecution is unlawful. Now, what we are then saying is that private prosecutions will only be entertained if they result in a criminal conviction in the court of law, mm-hmm. which is an important issue. At a time when people are pursuing personal vendettas and personal hatred towards each other and then privately prosecuting each other, the ANC is not interested in such issues. So that's where we are, and it's very objective. Mm-hmm. We are not saying we discard it altogether, but if it does result in a criminal conviction in a court of law, we'll then take it into account during the candidate selection process. So it has nothing to do with President Ramaphosa per se, because these rules are applied across the board. They are not selective.
How then does it safeguard other members if you're saying that, looking at the timing and all the developments around the president and what he's facing at the moment, that in itself was not, a baseline to determine this, this exclusion for the first time. For the first time, at this time, this rule is now being excluded. How does it safeguard other members?
Firstly, let's correct this for the first time issue, because it's not for the first time.
Is it not?
The ANC has never entertained private prosecutions before.
But it was on the long list before.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Not at all. So you see, even during when we were going to Nasrec, the private prosecution matter was there. It was still going through the motions of court, but we never considered it. So it's not for the first time. So the issue is that we are saying that it is possible that people will abuse that particular process of private prosecution to try and remove others from the list. So we are saying that we only consider it once it has succeeded in criminal conviction. So it's not exclusive to President Ramaphosa, it's for all members. And if you can now look at the current case, the court is saying that this is abuse of process already. So we are preventing such issues.
So how does it tie in with the step-aside rule?
It doesn't tie in with the step-aside rule. It only ties in with the step-aside rule if it succeeds in a criminal conviction. Then that person who's convicted will then be asked to step aside, as it happens with others in terms of these rules. So
in fleshing it out more, to what point are private prosecutions excluded? What happens in the instance of criminal convictions? How do...
So when the process is still underway, the ANC is not involved and is not, bringing that to apply in terms of the rules. It's only when it sits in court and then there is a court conviction by a judge who says you are found guilty of certain offences, then the ANC will consider it. So we're not discarding it completely.
So what about the criticism that perhaps may come with this, that this is just a way, of course, to safeguard the president and also allow the ANC to stamp out its authority, especially with elections around the corner? What would you say to such critics?
No, I think that is simply mischievous and misinformed. It's not correct to say that because, as I say, those rules are approved by the entire National Executive Committee of the ANC and to apply across the board. So anybody who engages in private prosecution now and in the future will be subjected to the same rules. So there's no favoritism at all in terms of what we are doing.
Very well. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming in studio. Chief Livhuwani Matsila, Electoral Committee spokesperson there for the ANC, expanding on the new rules, which, what's been going around is that they all garnered to protect President Cyril Ramaphosa, of course, him dismissing that as hogwash. So